Well, I'm a little worse for wear. Started the morning in New York, ended here in Pittsburgh. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now YouTube channel. And let me start with a not-so-well-kept secret. That was the very best version of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Wasn't always perfect. It wasn't always pretty. I thought Toronto had the better of the first 30 minutes. I thought the Penguins were in survival mode for much of the first period. But what the Penguins did very differently on Saturday compared to what they've done so often in the first 28 games of the season, they didn't crumble. They didn't crack. They didn't waver. They didn't pout. They didn't have one of those awful letdowns for 2 minutes in which they let the game entirely get away. The Penguins kept fighting. They kept battling. As they dialed it in, they actually, I think, wore down Toronto. The Penguins' power play was the difference on Saturday. Did I mention the score yet? 5-2 Penguins. A pair of empty net, shorthanded goals clinched the Penguins' victory. Their fifth in 6 games. Technically, they are tied for the second wild card spot. They, winning percentage-wise, they're still behind several teams. But get the points while you can. Winning certainly helps. So let's dial into a couple of the things the Penguins did very well and perhaps differently than they certainly have. First is that power play. They had a couple good ones. I mean, there were a lot of power plays in the game. The Penguins were 2 for 5 in 7 minutes because the game was getting chippy and the referees made some soft calls on both sides in the second period. I can't say I was crazy about a couple of the calls against the Penguins. Chris Letang and Erik Karlsson certainly got their money's worth on the way to the box in the second period, but Mike Sullivan made some changes, some personnel changes to the power play throughout the game. It was evolving, and let me tell you, the power play in the third period, I guess we'll call it power play 2, but realize on power play 2 was Erik Karlsson, Hall of Famer, Evgeny Malkin, Hall of Famer. Moments before, Chris Letang was also on the ice. Of course, that goes without saying. Cody Glass, Michael Bunting, and who am I forgetting here? Brian Rust. Not your conventional power play, ruthlessly effective. The way they moved the puck tape to tape to tape, but also, we've seen the Penguins move the puck quite a bit on a power play and have nothing to show for it. What made it very different was the aggression with which they took space in the offensive zone. They got in the offensive zone and they just set up shop. Toronto couldn't clear it and they just kept attacking, pulling it down low, stretching the PK, hitting the open person who would take more ice. Eventually, they kind of scrambled Toronto's PK, which is pretty good, by the way. And Joseph Woll, who wasn't really great on Saturday, gives up a juicy rebound. Bunting is right there. Pretty big celebration against his old team, I must say. I didn't get a chance to run over and talk to Bunting. I don't know if anybody asked him about the celebration or not. But I went and talked to Brian Rust and Marcus Pettersson, amongst other guys in the locker room. And let me give you a little bit of inside info. There was some off-the-record stuff. Not all the guys in the locker room were entirely happy with the way Toronto played. They wanted to go out and play again, quite frankly. It's kind of one of those games where you still have the energy and intensity after the game. You're all fired up and pumped up. That was the Penguins' locker room Saturday. It was a different place. It wasn't like exuberant and happy. It was jacked up. They were ready to go again. It was different, and Brian Rust had that aggression from the opening shift. Rickard Rakell, I don't know if you've noticed this, the last couple of games, Rakell has been the guy in the middle of these scrums. He's bringing it, not just on the offensive side, but he's kind of bringing a more complete 200-foot game as well. And Marcus Pettersson, I'll tell you what I said to Marcus, because he almost got in a fight with Ryan Reeves. Reeves kind of plastered Erik Karlsson into the back wall, as Reeves does. It wasn't too dirty, but it was heavy. And Pettersson was the guy who stood up for Karlsson. I was like, Marcus, you're allowed to, oops. Marcus, you're allowed to, pick a fight with smaller guys. Because Pettersson, of course, has fought Tom Wilson, Nick Delorier, and the rest of the heavyweights. It's like, no, Marcus, don't do that. You got a family to feed. But to the Penguins, to the point of the Penguins showing their best, it was that they kept marching, not just on that power play, but throughout the game. By the middle of the third period, they were outplaying Toronto, and they were just kind of coming in waves. All four lines. Sullivan didn't have to pull guys out or shorten his bench. Instead, it was guys, like the third line, like Blake Lizotte, who gets the empty netter. His fourth goal in, 13 games this season? Fourth goal in the last 5 games, is it? Four goals in 4 games? Whatever. You'll forgive me. All the stats are kind of jumbled tonight because there are so many. Let's talk about the Penguins' blue line. Let's do that because I ripped them pretty good, both in print on Saturday, but also in the video, the car talk video that I did on the way back from New York. I shredded the Penguins' defense pretty thoroughly. Ryan Graves and Matt Grzelcyk, their struggles this season, as well as the unit as a collective. So they served me a little plate of humble pie on Saturday because, there were some bobbles. However, they also played solidly. Mike Sullivan had some praise for Ryan Graves, the way he leaned on people near the net. And Graves did play a bigger game than he usually does. And Matt Grzelcyk being flipped to the right side was a little better than Ryan Shea has been on that third pairing right side. Listen, there were a couple sketchy moments, but they didn't crumble, and the rest of the team didn't crumble. I thought Owen Pickering was perfectly invisible beside Chris Letang. And I mean that as a compliment. You didn't notice Owen Pickering on Saturday, did you? That means he made no mistakes. That means he was not out of position. That means he didn't chase. That means he nullified chances against. There was one moment that you got a little bit tense on, the first 2 minutes of the game. He gets on the wrong side of the puck at center ice. William Nylander gets behind him, but Pickering just took 2 strides, caught Nylander, and would not let up. Dogged him as Nylander tried to go for a breakaway or an unabated chance. Pickering would have none of that. Didn't take a penalty, no hooking, no holding, but Pickering just absolutely kind of roughed him up for 100 feet. That was pretty good defense and a great recovery. So at least for one night, the Penguins' blue line looked quite competent. I'm sure there will be some ebbs and flows to that, but take it for what it's worth and take it for a night. Tristan Jarry also, I thought, played exceptionally well. He made a lot of tough saves, looked very easy. Austin Matthews, in fact, on the circle right behind the camera here, got a couple of rips on Jarry, who made some good saves. Confidence. In addition to the jacked up nature of the locker room, I think the Penguins' chest is getting just a little bit bigger. They were awful against New York, and they knew it, but they were angry this time. They didn't sulk, they didn't pout, they didn't shrink from a very tough game against Toronto, who did play well. Instead, they fought back. Maybe there is some hope for this team, huh? From PPG Paints Arena, I'm Dan Kingerski. Have fun.